Welcome back to Liberation YouTube channel. Today's class we learn how to make an asymmetric neckline dress with puff sleeve and a beautiful net attachment at the lower part. It's a very simple tutorial and is beginner friendly. If this is something you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so for this tutorial I'm going to be drafting my basic bodice first, and I have it folded into four, my front and back. This is my zipper allowance for the back. So here I'm just going to measure my shoulder, which is 8 inches 16 divided by 2. Then on that point I'm going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and then I'm going to mark a tentative neckline of 3 inches by 1 inch. Okay, we are still going to change this to our asymmetric neckline. So there I'm going to connect my shoulder slope. I'm going to connect my shoulder slope, and then from the starting point again I'm going to mark my armhole line, which is 9 inches, and then here is my waistline. Okay, so on the armhole line I'm going to mark my bust measurement. 44 inches divided by 4 is 11, so I have 11 inches here, and this is going to be my seam allowance, 1.5. So on my waistline, the waist I'm working with is 38 inches divided by 4. It's going to give me 9.5. So I have 9.5 inches here. I'm going to take 1 inch from my dart. So if you're working with a stretchy fabric, you don't need to add that, and then my seam allowance as well. So if you're working with a stretchy fabric, like I said, you don't need to add that to yours. My fabric is not stretchy, so I'm just going to be working with the waist dart. So to take my dart, I'm going to work with my bust span of 9 inches divided by 2 is 4.5. So I'm going to mark my bust point to know where to stop my dart. My bust point is around 10.5 inches, so I'm just going to go down by half an inch there, and on that point I'm going to remark my bust span. So I'll connect this together, and then I'm going to mark my half an inch on both sides. If you want to work with the bust dart as well, you can do that, but I don't want to have too many seam lines here, so this is perfect for me. So I have my dart there, and then the next thing is to connect my armhole. Using a curved ruler, you're going to connect your armhole, and then I'm going to cut this out and go ahead to sew them together. After sewing it, now I'm going to adapt it to my asymmetric neckline, so it's easier that way, especially for beginners. If you cut like this, you're not going to get confused. So I've cut all of this out. Now I'm just going to lift it up now and notch where my dart is. So I'll take this to the sewing machine and then stitch it on the shoulder as well as the side seam, and I'm going to take my dart. After that I'm going to bring it back to us to reshape it. So we join it on the shoulder, the side seam, and then we'll hold our dart. Okay, so for the lower part of the dress, I already took 17 inches off, 16 inches off for my half length. So now this has a net underneath it, so it's a full gown. So the next one I want it to be around 36-37 inches, and then the net is going to complete my full length of 60 inches. Okay, you can measure where you want it to be, but for this lower part you need it to be, you don't want it to be too long because there is no slit on this skirt. So if it's too long, you will not be able to walk freely in it. So from 34 to 36 inches is fine, depending on how tall you are. So you can see what I have here. So from there now I'm going to measure my hip length. The hip length I'm working with is 26 inches, so I'll measure 26 inches there. My fabric is folded into 4, just like I did for the upper bodies. I'm folding the front and back together, and you can see my zipper allowance there. So from there I'm going to measure my waistline. Remember, 9.5 inches plus 1 inch for my dart excuse me, and 1.5 inches for my seam allowance. Okay, on my hip I'm going to measure my hip measurement. 46 divided by 4 is 11.5. So I have it there, and I'm going to measure 1.5 inches for my seam. So it's going to be like a pencil dress, so I'm going to be deducting like 1 to 1.5 inches from my hip measurement for the hem of the skirt, depending on how tapered you want it to be. So that's 11.5. I'm deducting 1, I have 10.5, so I'm deducting 1.5, and then I'm going to have 10 inches, and on that point I'm going to add my 1.5 inches seam allowance. So the next thing is to connect all of these points together. I'm connecting from my waist to my hip, and then from the hip I'm going to connect to the hem as well. So I've connected it. The next thing is to take my dart. My dart is 4.5 inches, and then the length is going to be around 5 inches for me. So there I'm going to take a dart of 1/2 inch on both sides, and then I'm going to connect it to the dart leg. So there I'm connecting that. Okay, please, this is my center front too. This side is my center front, this is the side, so please take note of that. I'm taking that measurement, all my measurements from the center front towards this side. Okay, so I think that's about everything I need to do on this. So now I'm going to cut out my side seam. I'm going to notch my dart area, and then I'll move straight to the sewing machine. So what you just need to do after sewing your upper bodies, I'm going to be joining them together on the waistline. I'm going to join them all together on the waistline before joining on the sides. I hope you understand that. Okay, so I've cut it out now. I'm going to notch my dart area. So what I was explaining is, remember, this is my front body, so after taking the dart for the front bodies as well, I'm going to join my front and back together. So this is the back, this is the front. I'm going to join the upper and lower bodies together before joining them on the side, so they have to be the same. You can see they have the same thing here. So I'm going to hold the dart for this as well, and then join them together before bringing it back to show us what we have. Okay, so I'm gonna head to join it on the shoulder. As you can see, I took my dart as well, and then I joined it on the side. So this is the right side. And then I joined the lower part to the upper part, so you can see. So now I'm going to turn it to the right side. I held my zipper allowance with pins. So now I'm turning this to the right side. Turning to the right side, this is what I have. So when you're joining your darts, please make sure that the skirt part and the upper part align together like this. It has to align so that it's not going to be looking awkward. Okay, your dart line has to align with each other. So what you just need to do now is to arrange it well, and then you go ahead to shape it however you want. So one side is going to be a shoulder, while the other is going to be an off shoulder. So I'm just arranging this well, and then you choose the side where you want your off shoulder to be. I want mine to be on this side. So now what I just need to do now is to measure how up I want it to be. So from this shoulder area, I'm just going to be going down by around 5 inches. Okay, 5 to 5.5 inches, and then I'm going to mark that point. Okay, so after marking that point, I'm going to connect from this shoulder to that point, but my center front here, I want to note my center front, so I don't want it to be too low. Remember, we already got that by 2 inches, so I'm just going to make it around 6 inches so that it's not going to be too low. So once I establish that, I'm going to bring in my curved ruler, and then I'm going to connect all of these points together. So I'm connecting from the shoulder to the first point here, and then from there I'm going to connect it to my off shoulder area. So make sure you get a very nice curve. You don't want it looking awkward, so everything has to be blending together. So connected. So now that I have connected this, I'm going to bring in my scissors and then cut out the new shape that I have. So this is going to be a little bit off, so if you don't want it this off, you can decide not to, for it not to be this off. And then on this shoulder part, I can remember the 3 inches by what is our natural neckline, so I don't want it this close, so I'm just going to go outwards by 1 inch again, and then I'm going to reconnect that to what I have here. So I hope you understand that. So now here I'm just going to cut it, but I think this is going to be a bit off by the time I turn it, so I'm just going to go up a bit. I'm not going to be cutting on this line, so you can see me going up a bit. So if I cut it and it's too high, it's better for me to reshape it than for it to be too off. So now after cutting it, this is what I have now. This is what my off shoulder is looking like. So now you can cut a facing, turn it out, or you just turn it with your bias. Whichever one you want to work with is fine. So the next thing I'm going to do after this is just to bring in my fabric and cut out my sleeve. So for your sleeve, one is going to be half shoulder and the other one is going to be a full shoulder sleeve. So I'm cutting the full shoulder sleeve first, and it's going to be a puff sleeve. So depending on how puffy you want it to be and the amount of fabric you have to work with. So I have 15 inches on fold. That's if I open it, I'm going to be having 30 inches in full. So now to shape the full shoulder part, I'm going to come down by 5.5 inches from my calf height, and then I'm just going to draw a curve using my free hand. Then here I'm going to be gathering it with my gather. So here also, this is going to be more than my armhole measurement. So the excess that I have, I'm just going to be placing it on my shoulder area. So now I've cut out the full shoulder. What you just need to do now is to fold this to create a channel for your elastic on the hem, and then the excess that I have here, I'm going to pleat it to fit into my actual sleeve. So for the off shoulder, I'm going to, and then the length is how long you want it to be. Mine is just going to be a little above my elbow. So I have about 18 inches for my length, you can see, including allowance. So for the one with off shoulder, what I'm just going to do after folding it is to bring in my bodice, and then the off shoulder part, I'm just going to place it on it and then use it to shape it out. Okay, so you can see this is the off shoulder sleeve that I have there. I'll arrange it well, and then I'm placing it like this. So after placing it, I'm going to bring in my scissors and then I'm going to cut it out. Okay, so now I've shaped it. Now you can see that this is also more than what I took, so I'm going to create a channel here as well, and then I'm going to gather it back to what I have, and then here also I'm going to pass an elastic. So it's that simple. Okay, so I've gone ahead to turn the neckline with a facing. Like I said, I cut a facing for mine and I fixed my sleeve. So the one with shoulder, I gathered the excess here and then created channel for my elastic on the hem. So for the off shoulder, I used the elastic to gather it on the upper part and also used my elastic on the lower part. So this is what my dress looks like, and then for the back, I fixed my zipper as well. So the last thing to do now is to measure the hem of this dress. So the hem of this dress is around 20 inches. Okay, so for front and back, I'm going to have 40 inches by the time I multiply it by 2. So I'm going to use that measurement to cut out my net. So the net I'm working with is very stretchy, so I'm just going to cut the exact 20 inches, and it's just going to be a straight cut. So if you want yours to be in flare form, all you just need to do is to use that measurement to cut out your radius. Okay, and then you cut yours in flare form, but I'm just cutting mine in a straight form, so you can see it's like this. So this upper part is going to be 20 inches, and then the length is going to be as long as you want. Remember, we stopped on 36 inches for the dress. So now this is going to be as long as I want. My actual length is 60 inches, so I just added about 5 inches extra because I really want it to be long. So what I'm going to do now is to take this to the sewing machine and then sew this to the hem of my dress. Then I'll take it to the mannequin for us to see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what the asymmetric dress looks like on the mannequin. This is the side with the shoulder, and then the side with off shoulder has this elastic to control it. So you can actually raise it up like this to form a shoulder, or just drag it down as an off shoulder. Whichever one you want to work with is fine. And the net is fixed on the lower part, so this is what it looks like. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.